Hello and welcome to Chez Garbage, where we serve only the finest trash each seasonal crop has to offer. I'm Geoff, I'll be your waiter for the evening, and let me tell you folks, you picked a great night to come in. The chefs in back just got done cooking up two of the most pungent piles of anime trash I have ever laid nose on, and the appetizers are nothing to sneeze at neither.
お尻出してもらえますか？いや、何よ!
It might honestly be too trashy for a lot of you to handle, but that's exactly why they send me out to go over the menu, so you all know what you're getting into and we're not liable. This is the hottest trash of winter 2024, brought to you by Rosetta Stone. As a patron of this fine establishment, it's safe to bet that you're interested in Japanese culture. Not to mention, culture. But no matter how good the sub or dub for a particular piece of that culture may be, a little something will always be lost in translation. Ideally, you want to get everything straight from the source in the original Japanese, and while that is a whole lot easier said than done, Rosetta Stone makes the doing a whole lot easier too. Their immersive teaching method mimics the way we pick up language as babies, by directly associating sounds with the images and ideas they represent. So instead of learning to translate your target language, you start learning how to think in it right away. And with lessons under 10 minutes on their handy-dandy mobile app, that method can fit even the busiest of schedules. Rosetta Stone's process is so effective, they're trusted by banks, baseball teams, and big scary governments the world over. So you might think this enterprise-grade software is a little overkill for our humble goals of simply better immersing ourselves in Japanese trash piles. But what if I told you they're offering a whopping 60% discount on their already generous lifetime plan? If you spend just 3 years learning, that's already better value for one language than competing subscription services, and this package comes with 25 for life. So if you ever get a hankering for Spanish or Korean trash, you're already good to go. Don't miss this fantastic deal. Start your Japanese learning journey today at the link on screen or in the doobly-doo. Now, in past seasons, Chez Garbage has been quite liberal with the isekai and I can't believe it's not isekai options on our menus, but with no less than 10 debatably isekai type things coming out this winter, we had no choice but to get a little choosier. Tonight, we only have 2 on the menu, but they're both standouts in their own way. One, a classically styled piece of comfort food, the other, an experimental fusion dish I can only describe as bleeding edge. I can only describe it that way because it's mathematically impossible to make anything edgier than a half isekai, half death game anime, and that's exactly what my instant death ability is so overpowered is. Like, within the first 10 minutes of this show, every last kid in Protag-kun's class decides to leave him and his love interest for dead just because it seems like they might not be that useful in the death game, including the ones she thought were her friends. He doesn't actually have any friends, he just sits in the back of class and the bus playing his Switch all day, and in fact, he will keep playing his Switch and eventually get his waifu to hand charge it with a crank generator for him so that he doesn't have to stop playing his Switch, but I digress. The only 3 classmates who do come back for them, still within that first 10 minutes by the way, are these otaku freaks who got one whiff of isekai protagonist power and instantly decided to become sex criminals with it. I can't decide if that's brilliant genre satire or not, but I'm leaning toward not because Protag-kun's whole justification for saving his love interest from those creeps, and also the dragon that tried to eat them a couple minutes before the creep showed up, is he likes how her boobs feel on his arm. Also, the way he saves her, as the title suggests, is by pointing at the bad things and saying, "Die." Though it also would have worked if he just thought that at him, or as an automatic self-defense response if anyone ever thinks it at him.
死ね。
不ゲラ死ねってなんでござるか。いくらなんでもボキャブラリーが
まだ死ねって言って死んだんだから、因果関係ぐらいさしてくれよ。だから動くな。死ね。え？
So, yeah, that's his ability. It is, as you might imagine, pretty overpowered, even more so than all the OP isekai protag abilities of the classmates they're fighting in the death game, and of the demigods running that death game, which you get to become one of those demigods if you win it. Although Protag-kun won't get to become one because his ability exists outside the death game system, and neither will Love Interest Chan, since she was protected from having that isekai protag power system installed in her soul or whatever by quite possibly the most fucking aggravating anime mascot ever drawn.
高藤君にも見えてるんだよね。
Ugh, disgusting. I hate it. You should die.
我は見ての通り霊体だからな。
Then go die again. That would have worked if I was Protag-kun, though outside that one use case, I really wouldn't want to be. His powers just seem really boring, you feel me? Like, even if he's doing basically the same thing Anos Voldigo did that one time he beat a guy to death using only his own heartbeat, that's just clearly way more awesome than pointing at a guy and then he falls over forever because you said so. Luckily, there is fun to be had in watching the villains try to find loopholes around that ability using their slightly less overpowered powers, and in seeing what over-the-top anime trope the series wants to throw at the wall next. But the fact that the hero is all but guaranteed to be the least interesting guy in any given room does hold this trash back from reaching its full potential. I give it 2 electronic store bins full of used smartphones with a death game app on them, which are exploding due to their lithium-ion batteries, but not in a particularly interesting way. Okay, so as culinary experiments go, clearly the whole death game isekai thing needed a bit more time in the oven, but that's exactly why we keep some tried and true traditional trash around to fall back on. And recipes don't get more tried or true than the classic one-part isekai, one-part harem. Tales of Wedding Rings takes the foundational fantasy quest template of an ancient evil chasing down a chosen one who's destined to defeat it, and blends it seamlessly with your basic bread and butter harem formula by turning the obligatory magic jewelry MacGuffin into a set of 5 wedding rings, each one granting its wearer the power of a primal element proportionate in potency to the affection of the princess who bears its counterpart. So the more waifus Protag-kun gets and the happier he can make them, the more OP his OP isekai abilities become. In other words, if Rentaro Ijo had access to this power system, he would instantly become a god.
誓うよ。絶対に2人とも幸せにする。
Now, Haruto Sato is definitely no Rentaro, but he's no Keitaro either. As harem protags go, he's quite the go-getter, the type of dude who'd charge headfirst into a magic portal with no way of knowing how to get home, purely for the sake of his beloved childhood friend, who turned out to be a reverse isekai princess. A man with the nobility and self-sacrificing grace to give up his dreams of monogamy with that childhood friend, to also marry several other sexy magic princesses, including an elf and a cat girl, if that's what it takes to protect his beloved from the evil forces of the Abyss King. Now, he does lose some points for refusing to admit his feelings to that childhood friend for multiple episodes after they've already married each other, but even with those deductions, he's still light years ahead of your average Kazuya.
俺も新王の魔物なのか。いや、俺
俺はただの森の獣。
つまりただの野生動物か。だったら危険。
Now, there's nothing particularly novel about how this series builds its harem or its fantasy world, though it does add some appealingly distinct aesthetic touches to both, especially if you like cat girls and cat-girl-based civilizations. If anything, it's a little bit old school, reminiscent of pre-SAO isekai trash like El Hazard, only with a slightly more modern approach to harem writing where the characters actually talk about their feelings and try to make the relationship work in between all the times they almost screw but don't, as opposed to, you know, just kind of yelling at each other and being horrible. I'm not sure why all the horny teenagers in the mid-2000s liked that so much, but we did. A lot. The story tying it all together is likewise as paint by numbers as fantasy quests get. I literally predicted the entire plot of the second arc the second they mentioned the cat girls have an arena, but that familiarity only enhances the cozy, nostalgic vibe of the piece, which is not a wholesome vibe, to be clear. Please, do not make the mistake of thinking this anime is in any way wholesome. If you're not watching the uncensored cut, available now on Patreon, trust me, there are elf tits galore behind all this cute animal stock footage. Many of them quite hilariously deformed by just some of the worst animation I've ever seen. And when you've watched as many garbage harem anime as I have, that's maybe the most nostalgic thing of all. I give Tales of Wedding Rings 3 warm, inviting oil drum fires tucked cozily beneath an underpass next to some beers and a stack of vintage nudie mags. For our guests with allergies, tonight's menu also features an isekai-free harem option in Hokkaido gals are super adorable. Although, I must be honest with you, it's hardly the trashiest harem you've ever seen. I mean, the waifus do show a fair bit of skin, but, you know, for Hokkaido, with apologies, the chefs in back went a little nuts last season, making 100 girlfriends, and we're just running a little low on harem trash ingredients. Most of what we had also had to go to the main course, so we're all just gonna have to make do. Some of you might argue this doesn't even count as a harem at all, just a standard shonen love triangle thing with an exceptionally indecisive vertex. However, there are 3 eligible Gyaru bachelorettes that protag-kun Tsubasa is ultimately incapable of deciding between, and it's been a while since I last did elementary school geometry, but I'm pretty sure 3 plus 1 is more sides than a triangle has, so it's a harem. Don't like it? Take it up with the trash FDA. The story and characters of this technically a harem anime are nothing you haven't seen before, especially not if you've seen My Dress Up Darling. Timid Tsubasa and his boisterously friendly main gal Minami have so much in common with Wakana and Marin, you'd almost think this was them in winter cosplay. But that was a very fun relationship dynamic in the original show that hasn't been done to death in other anime since, so I don't really mind seeing it again in this new context. And the competing love interests, socially awkward gamer gal Sayuri and meek upper-class woman Rena, add more than enough wrinkles to keep it from feeling like a rehash. Still, it is, at best, like one ski lodge bin stuffed with fuzzy pink winter gear that's so last season. But don't worry, if that's not enough trash for you, you're about to get more than anyone could possibly ask for. Gushing Over Magical Girls is an anime for anyone out there who ever watched Sailor Moon and wondered why they always put all that glowy crap in front of the transformations. Our heroine, Utena-chan, would like to believe she's simply a typical fangirl who really admires the strength and beauty of those magical girls, but deep down, she's exactly that kind of freak, and that's exactly what this adorably sinister little mascot dude is counting on when he offers to fulfill her dream of magically transforming without specifying what exactly she'll be henshining into.
そこまでだよ。悪の組織メヌルミータ、反応を追ってみたらやっぱり姿を現したね。 助けてください。私無理やり変身させられて。そうなの？敵の言葉を信用したら飽きまへんえ。信じてもらえないなんて。それは残念だね。
As it turns out, he's not a magical girl mascot at all, but rather the vanguard of an apparently cash-strapped evil organization that can only afford, like, one uniform between two villainesses, and he wants her to take half that uniform, which turns out to fit her quite well, despite her insistence that she doesn't enjoy watching magical girls suffer. It quickly becomes obvious that she does, actually, quite a lot. Maybe too much, but the magical girls quickly discover that they do too, so that sort of makes it all okay if you go by hentai logic. And you're gonna have to if you want to watch this anime, because it is, without question, a tie on a hen. Specifically of the softcore BDSM variety, albeit one that's on TV somehow with a super catchy, gorgeously animated theme song, some surprisingly hilarious jokes, and even a few impressively fleshed out character arcs. But then most of those arcs are about someone who thinks they're not a freak embracing their inner freak, because, again,
It's my lucky day.
SM これってエッチな本だ。
it is what it is. And if you're into what it is, you'll probably be very happy with the overall quality of it, at least until that drops off drastically a few episodes in, like it does in basically all these anime, except Interspecies Reviewers. That show was built different, but this show isn't, even if it does mix some clever gags into the horny bits and frames them with some seriously fun slice of life comedy. If you're not here for the increasingly absurd fetish material, if only to see how absurd it gets, there's not a lot that's gonna keep you here besides, I guess, the fact that it's a Yuri that actually does things on screen, even if some of those things involve, you know, diapers and glue traps. Look, no judgment. I get it. Yuri enjoyers are so hard up for content that's not bait, they're willing to resort to citrus. Not even hentai logic makes that show's plot okay. That said, if you can look past all the smut, and also directly at quite a bit of it, because often the tickling and tentacle play scenes involve some shockingly significant character development, there is actually, no joke, a pretty solid story to be found here about self-discovery and sexual awakening, but you need to be, like, impervious to anime bullshit to appreciate any of that. Gushing over magical girls easily earns itself 5 filthy garbage barges full of BDSM gear and Sailor and the Seven Balls DVDs bathed in the white-hot glow of an oil-based lube fire. But as far as recommendations go, if you have to ask, it's probably not for you. Chained Soldier just might be, though. Or, as it's known in the original Japanese, Mato Seihei no Slave. Don't worry, this isn't an isekai, merely an isekai-adjacent portal invasion story, which I'm told are all the rage in Korean manhwa these days. So that one English word in the title isn't referring to any of the usual whitewashed historical atrocities, just good old-fashioned kinky shit.
迷ってる場合じゃねえ。靴を舐めて夢が叶うならやってやんよ。
Born into a world where, in contrast to, say, solo leveling, only ladies get to have the cool monster fighting superpowers what come out of them portals, Yuki Wakara long ago gave up his boyhood dream of becoming a superhero to focus on his homemaking skills in hopes of one day landing a rich waifu. But those plans changed slightly after he finds himself facing down a horde of monsters in the other world, and Captain Kyoka of the Anti-Demon Corps uses her special superpower to turn him into her slave, which is a lot like being a regular safe-for-work transforming superhero, only with the added accessory of a chain-link leash and the added twist that, as a cost for using her power, his mistress has to reward her slaves with whatever they desire most the moment the battle ends, in direct proportion to how intense that battle was. So the more awesome the action scene, the more awesome the ecchi scene. Also, more specifically, it's his subconscious desires, so the fact that he can be a hero after all is far from the only thing Yuki's gonna discover about himself in his time as the 7th Anti-Demon Division's involuntary volunteer housekeeper. Especially with 2 other superpowered hotties on base chasing his canonically quite impressive Schmit. But, lest you think this is just another bottom-of-the-barrel shonen battle harem whose only use for its power system is putting the girls in smoking hot fighting uniforms and asking questions like, what if Ultraman was a woman and then she sat on me? Think again. Not only is Chain Soldier fast-paced and action-packed, but that action is on some studio trigger shit. That said, if you do watch this one for the action, which you totally should, this Twin Tails Ojo-sama has all the JoJo time control powers at the same time, and she activates them by JoJo posing. It's amazing! But if you do, you should always bear Imaishi's law in mind. No matter how insanely awesome the rest of an anime is, if someone walks in on you watching it, it will be the absolutely freakiest part.
男に負ける私じゃないもん。逆に襲っちゃうようだ。じゃあ罰ゲームとして全てを見せてもらいましょう。どれどれ。やめろ
But even in those parts, your shocked roommate/parent may still catch a glimpse of just how fun and playful the writing is. Like when Captain Kyoka decides to just deliver an important military briefing to Yuki while she's busy rewarding him with, what's a way that YouTube would let me say that? A bit of grape stomping? Anyway, she does an exposition dump in the middle of stepping on him because, hey, why not multitask? Also, the fact that those rewards come from Yuki's subconscious adds another hilarious layer where every time his mistress gives him the obligatory, "You want me to do what?" disgusting part of the Dami Mommy care package, his response is just, "Hey lady, I'm as surprised as you are." Don't stop though. Battle and harem trash are both at their best when they take themselves just not seriously enough, and Chain Soldier absolutely nails that sweet spot. I give it 5 solid gold dumpsters full of fireworks and military uniforms made in clear violation of all the sexiest regulations. And that's all the trash we've got for you tonight. Well, unless you'd like a complimentary wafer-thin after-dinner isekai about big titty elves in hot springs, but frankly, if those main courses weren't enough for you, that scares me a little. Get help. But until next season, I'm Geoff Thew, your maître d'hors d'oeuvres, bidding you, with the help of Rosetta Stone's true accent technology, adieu.